Today we're gonna smoke some ribs with this crazy mad scientist barbecue method, and I can't wait to tell you how they turned out. Carlos Bradley here, also known as Smoke and Vine. Today we are going to be trying a method for cooking our ribs that I have been wanting to try for probably over a year now. You see, I saw the mad scientist of barbecue himself try this on some ribs at least a year ago, and I remember thinking, oh my God, this looks incredible. And every time I have cooked racks of ribs afterwards, I've thought to myself, why did I not use this method? So today we're going to use the method. We're going to start with some St. Louis cut spare ribs. We're not going to do a lot to them, and then they are going in our smoker. The smoker that we're using today is our Camp Chef Woodwind Pro. I think I have hickory wood chunks, so that's what's going in there. We're gonna smoke these at 225 degrees the entire way. I cannot wait to see how these turned out. Literally, I have fantasized about these ribs, and the few people that I know have made them say that they are absolutely insane, and it's really the only way that they cook ribs now. So today we are going to see just how good this method turns out. So we have our 2 racks of St. Louis style pork spare ribs. Like I said, we are not going to do much in the prep for these racks of ribs. Once we get both racks out of the wrapper, we're simply going to take a paper towel, we're going to pat them dry, get any of that moisture, any of that packaging juice off of these ribs, and then we will be ready to start. If you want to pull off the back membrane on these racks, you totally can. I prefer not to. So today, all we're going to do is we are going to score this back membrane. When you're cooking ribs for 5 or 6 hours, this back membrane will not matter at all. Now with these racks, there really wasn't a whole lot to trim off. Sometimes there's a lot of this flat meat. You need to trim it down a little bit, but there was barely anything here. And on the front side, there was really just one section that had some meat hanging off. We're gonna trim that off, and then we are ready to season using Texas Hat Hanger. A salt, pepper, garlic rub will be fantastic on these ribs. We're going light on the bone side, and then on the meat side, we're going to go pretty heavy. We want to make sure that every square inch of meat is covered with this rub. We're going to gently pat in this rub with our hands. Then we're going to allow these ribs to sit for 10 or 15 minutes, allow that rub to adhere to the meat before we get them on the smoker. So after we have our ribs trimmed up, our back membrane scored, seasoned up, now they're going in our Camp Chef Woodwind Pro, 225 degrees. We've got some hickory wood in the smoke box. These are gonna go in, and we are going to forget about them for probably 3 hours. Now that our ribs are on, it's time for the secret weapon of this cook method, and that is none other than lard. Yes, lard. You see, this whole cook method came about because Jeremy thought to himself, hey, I wrap brisket in beef tallow almost every time I do brisket. Why wouldn't I try wrapping smoked ribs in lard? So I have this incredible high quality lard from South Chicago Packing. They are the same people that make the Wagyu beef tallow that I use on almost every single brisket cook. And now they also have the Wagyu tallow spray that is absolutely incredible, and I use this almost daily. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take this lard, we're gonna scoop 2 healthy scoops for each rack of ribs, so that's 4 scoops total. We're gonna add it to the smoker, let it smoke for the 5-6 hours that these ribs are gonna smoke. They're gonna have this beautiful, fatty, smoky flavor, that same consistency, texture, and flavor, that richness that you get from the smoked tallow. At least that's what I think is gonna happen. And then when we take our ribs off to wrap them for like the last 30 minutes of the cook, we're going to add that smoked lard. Let's do it. It's now been about 5.5 hours and the racks of ribs are looking absolutely perfect. They're temping right where I want them to temp at about 190-ish. What we're going to do now is we're gonna take them off the smoker, we're gonna wrap them in some foil, we're gonna wrap them in that smoked beef lard that's been smoking for 5.5 hours. We're gonna wrap it up, back to the smoker for probably 30 minutes. Then we're gonna rest these ribs for an hour, 2 hours, however long until we're ready to eat. And then we slice into them. Let's go. It is the moment we have all been waiting for. It is time to see how these ribs have turned out. And actually, I have been waiting for this moment for at least a year because I have fantasized about these ribs. Let's unwrap. They're not even all the way unwrapped yet, and they smell absolutely incredible. Wow. Yes. Oh. Wow. 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 I wish you could smell how incredible this rack of ribs smells right now. Let's give you a look. Of ribs. Drip, drip, drip. Just from licking my fingers, the richness and the smokiness, it is time to get into these. The flavor, the aroma on this rack of ribs is absolutely bonkers. Wow. All right, here we go. It is now time to try these ribs that I have been dreaming about for well over a year. We're going in. You know, the way I typically make ribs is not far off from this. However, at the end, instead of wrapping with lard, I typically wrap with just a little bit of Texas-style barbecue sauce. These are better. Clean bite, not falling off the bone. But the moment you bite in, you see the bone. The flavor is so rich, and the smoke flavor, the pork flavor, it's unlike any rib I think that I've ever had. This is special, and I'm so glad that I have another rack because I might devour this entire rack tonight. All right, one more bite. You see, after you've been cooking barbecue for a decent amount of time, I'm of the persuasion that your taste buds start to crave raw, natural flavors. So when I was starting out my barbecue journey, I was wrapping ribs with honey and sugar and sauce, and it tasted like meat candy. And sometimes I like, biting into something that tastes like candy. But what I've noticed over the last few years is I want to taste purity. I want to taste the purity of the pork, of the meat. I want to taste the purity of the seasoning. And it was a very simple seasoning that we used with that Rub City, Texas head hang. And then I want to taste the purity of the smoke. That's why we smoke meat. This method brings out that purity possibly in the best way I've ever experienced. If you have not tried this yet, please don't wait a year. Don't wait 2 years like I did. Try it now. Try it on your next rack of ribs. I promise you, You're going to love it. Until next time, like, subscribe, throw me a comment down below. We'll see you soon. I'm gonna eat this.